SMEs are able to finance their expansion through their cash flow, and they have to depend upon mainly informal financing, unfortunately. Formal financing from banks are hard to come by for SMEs. BDB again and KFH, I honor you, sir, for bringing it up. The kind of pioneering work that you're doing is really an honor to learn and understand about. And financing assumes a material role in SMEs experiencing high growth. The thing is this, SMEs have a short growth span. They build very quickly, and they need financing quickly as well. If they don't, at some point, they are going to die. And many SMEs die by the end of 2 years. So in order to sustain that growth, bankers have to understand how SME growth patterns are and be open to financing them through their growth cycle. Approximately 85% of SMEs in emerging markets suffer from credit constraints. I'm sure the small business people here will agree with me. A lot of them go to informal sectors for financing at very high cost, which is such a pity that should happen. Why do banks hesitate to provide financing? The thing is, they have a lack of successful track record of SMEs create a perception of greater credit risk for among the banks. They lack substantial asset base. They cannot provide huge collateral, and there is very limited direct equity financing sources for SMEs. Once again, BDB has done a pioneering role in providing equity financing. This is one of the first banks that I've ever heard of participating in equity of small businesses. Thank you, sir, for being that support to SMEs. It's very important, and I was quite amazed at the kind of strength you are providing to SMEs. Banks need to understand the dynamics of SMEs and develop a portfolio approach. You know, it is not, banks cannot think of one-on-one. I give it to you, you succeed or you fail. It is the entire portfolio. When you look at the entire portfolio, the performance, I can guarantee, of SMEs, the entire portfolio performance of SMEs is always better than the portfolio performance of large businesses. They should reward beneficial linkages with big business through preferential pricing. Like I said, if you can build ancillary, marry yourself to big business with ancillary, serving as an ancillary, then you should be rewarded with cost breaks for banking finance. Banks also need to build interbank collaborations aimed at promoting SMEs, and banks should lobby with government agencies for subsidies and guarantees. A lot of governments are willing to provide that kind of subsidies, and hopefully the banks will be able to lobby for them. Now, this is an interesting slide I wanted to put up. As a banker, I have found that SMEs have difficulties in certain areas of their cash conversion cycle. Now, cash itself is a problem. These are the pressure points that I wanted to bring up. Having adequate cash to work their short-term needs is a big problem for SMEs. However, they are very good at the kind of use they make of buying raw materials to run their business. They are also very good at creating the finished goods, and they are very good at putting it up for sale. But where they fail always, every single time, as a banker I have seen we always fail is collecting on their receivables. Small business people, their core skill is building the product, using the raw materials well, finding the most optimum ways of building the raw materials. They are very good. Their core skill is in creating a product that they can put up on the shelf. But they also are forced to sell to sometimes on a receivable basis, sell it on credit. It's important for them to sell on credit. Suppose, Mr. Nahi, again, sorry, I keep picking on you. Suppose you supply 1,000 pastries to Gulf Hotel, on a credit basis. It is very difficult for you to go and stand in front of Gulf Hotel and say, pay me,
After that also on the good day,
yes.
they also delay.
They also delay because they are big business, and you
have
are
to provide them only.
yeah, and naturally, she is very good at delivering the product, but collecting on that payment is hard for her, So the receivable area is another pressure point. She feels scared to go and demand her payment. The large businesses take their time to make the payment. In the meantime, she doesn't have the cash anymore to start a new cycle of production. Small businesses end up in the space, difficult space, every single time. And this is where the bank should come in with a helping hand, factoring, receivable financing, things like that. We should be alert to the fact that small businesses can always run into these problems. And their weaknesses show. Small business is built upon the skill of the business person, and the skill of the business person is the production and the sale. And after the sale, this is an accountant's job. Receiving the receivables is really an accountant's job, and they don't feel equipped to deal with it, and so they let it drop, and that's when they run into cash conversion difficulties.
After they empty, they have to build up a program for receivables.
Absolutely.
The receivable program.
Yes.
I noted that.
All of us who are financing small businesses. All of us who finance small businesses need to be alert at this point of the cash conversion cycle and come in there with appropriate products and appropriate assistance to help them complete that cycle within the time frame that they need to start the new cycle. So it's an important problem that we need to be alert to. So.
You were saying, just to share with you your thoughts.
Absolutely.
I was saying to Rahman, of course, we can offer discounts at the receivable discount.
Oh my God.
They are going to mob you next.
We can pay off the receivable, that's easier.
Yes. Pay it off, and you collect from big business. And you collect from big business, Absolutely, that's an idea.
You can hold them from their neck later.
Yes, exactly.
We have no time to do that.
Yeah. You have the clout to manage that for them.
You have lots of companies waiting for their jobs, and you can create jobs. All these people that you can do
Right. So they're going to be approaching you now.
They have the new program. They would like it.
It's an important thing for us to think about how we can support them in that critical moment of their production cycle.
So banks
Yes.
more risk.
Yes.
So you took some cash.
Yes.
So when the circle takes its place and draws and splits, they reach a point where receivable is crucial. Then they need another that program.
And that is why
like the discussion session after the presentations because we are waiting for OECD Paris to also.
So banks need to redefine SME financing, and they need to participate in equity of small businesses and leverage on their understanding of SME sector and their access to capital. So, as well as banks must attempt to carve out profitable roles. You know, it is profitable. SME financing has proved to be profitable for banks, and they should get into equity financing also. BDP has done a big pioneering work over there, and I'm proud to know about this because in all my years of banking and small business careers, I never came across a bank willing to share in equity of small business. I never came. This is new, and I'm very proud to say that I know of a bank that does this. Okay, and banks may also get into the act of providing advisory services that KFH and BDP are doing, act as meeting points for overseas investors. And banks need to develop skills necessary to understand the SME sector, particularly in the area of risk assessment. And the risk may be addressed through partnerships that leverage the complementary strengths of the bank and its partners. So banks need to build fresh understanding of the risks of doing business with SMEs. So that about brings me to the end of my presentation. As we close my presentation, I would also like to add, ladies and gentlemen, all this is techniques and policy. We need to bring, along with techniques and policy, an open mind and a heart to deal with SMEs. If we don't do that, we will fail. And a vibrant, dynamic sector of the economy will not have a chance to be born. So with that, I thank you for your attention. And
thank you, Anuradha. I think that was very enlightening, educating for the audience. And I hope, as you can see, these things need a joint effort between all the parties concerned to make it happen. And I wish you all the luck. I think BIBF is an SME as well, because we are only 85 staff here. So we are in the SME category, so we are in the same boat, I think. And as you can see now, we have two experts from France OECD office. They will be joining us through the video conference to talk on the same topic with us as well. So how we can do that, how we can start that. I'm not a techie person here.
So hello, I hope that you can hear us. I'd like to present us. This is Jorge Galvez Mendez, and I am Corin Kane, and we work for the MENA OECD Investment Program. So what we would like to propose to you today is to give a brief introduction to our work in the Middle East and North Africa, and also to the OECD for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, and then a little bit on the SME environment in the region emerging from our work. And we'd like to finish with a focus on women's entrepreneurship development and the activities that we are engaged in to promote women entrepreneurs. So we're very honored to be with you. Even though we can't participate from Bahrain, I think it's great that the technologies allow us to share our experiences. So I give it the floor to Jorge.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this seminar, and thank you very much to the MENA Centre for Investment, which is very supportive of the activities of the OECD, of the MENA OECD Investment Program, and also to the BIBF for co-organizing this seminar. I don't know if you can see our PowerPoint presentation.
yes,
well, I hope that you have access to the slides. I'm going to say a few words about the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. This is an organization which has had its 50th anniversary this year. It was founded in 1961. It's a global organization comprising members from the Americas, from North America and South America, from Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and Asian countries, South Korea and Japan. But it's also a global organization because it works with governments of non-member countries, especially emerging economies. We have 5 enhanced engagement countries which work very closely with the OECD, which are the BRICS, the big emerging economies: Brazil, India, China, Indonesia, and South Africa. But we also work with non-members. The case is also with the MENA region, which we work very closely. I would like also to mention that the OECD covers several areas of public policy, almost all areas except the military and defense, but we cover from education to entrepreneurship, innovation, nuclear energy, etc. So this is, in general, the overview of the work of the OECD. And now Corinne is going to present particularly the MENA OECD Investment Program.
So the MENA OECD Investment Program was established in 2004 at the request of participating Middle East and North African governments. It was established to mobilize private investment as a driving force for economic growth and employment in the MENA region. It brings together policymakers, practitioners, civil society, and other stakeholders to engage in policy dialogue and share good practices in several policy areas. It is composed of 5 thematic working groups, which you can see on the diagrams that we're showing right now. And our main focus currently is on job creation, clean business, and women and the economy. And just to provide a couple of examples, the Working Group 2 on SME policy, entrepreneurship, and human capital development aims to engage partners and stakeholders in a regional dialogue and peer reviews on policy issues pertaining to SME development. And another one of our regional initiatives, which is the OECD MENA Women's Business Forum, is an interregional network which was established to share good practices on how to put in place targeted policies and support services to accelerate women's entrepreneurship development. So now Jorge is going to give a presentation on the SME environment in the MENA region.
Well, as it has been already discussed in this seminar, SMEs are key players not only in the economy but also in economic development and in employment creation and innovation. SMEs are the majority of firms in developed and developing countries. In the OECD, SMEs range from 95 to 99% or more of the totality of the total firms in the total firm population. But they are also important contributors to employment to different degrees. For instance, in the OECD, they account for, on average, for more than 2/3 of total employment and more than half of value added, and around 36% of exports in countries for which data is available, because this is also an issue for SME policy. Sometimes data is not available, so it's difficult to make an assessment of the situation of small enterprises in OECD countries, but also in non-OECD countries. But well, these are more or less the rough numbers of the importance of SMEs in the OECD. But as you know, SMEs are also key in the MENA region. In terms of making a distinction between micro, small, and medium-sized firms, you can see, for instance, in the right side graph that most firms are micro firms. Normally, these are firms employing from 1 to 10 or from 1 to 20 people. You can see, for instance, that nearly 90% of all SMEs in OECD countries are micro firms, but you can also see in MENA countries that the bulk are small enterprises. But also, for analyzing the impact of SMEs in the economy, seeing this kind of picture is not enough. We have to analyze this impact on a dynamic context, which is employment creation over a period of time, and this is the entrepreneurial performance of countries. So as an example, in the United States, which is the country which has the most developed research on SMEs and entrepreneurship, the Kaufman Foundation has found that from 1980 to 2005, nearly all jobs created occurred in firms with less than 5 years. And the census data of the US also confirmed that young firms less than 5 years account for 2/3 of job creation. But this is not only in the United States, of course. Research by the World Bank has shown that firm entry, that is to say the creation of new firms, is strongly correlated with GDP per capita, and that firm creation is related to indicators of economic development. Here it is so difficult to discern what is the cause and what is the consequence. Is firm creation leading to higher economic development or higher levels of GDP per capita, or is GDP per capita promoting entrepreneurship? Perhaps this is not a one-direction relationship, but it's also a circular influence between entrepreneurship and economic development. Also, apart from their impact on social welfare and economic development, SMEs and entrepreneurship, as you know, are important drivers of innovation. We don't have aggregated data on innovation. This is more anecdotal data. But, well, in the MENA region, we can draw examples. For instance, we have the MENA 100 Business Plan competition, which is undertaken with the great support of the MENA Centre for Investment. And in that competition, we have received very innovative applications from the MENA region. For instance, we have received applications in the agribusiness sector, projects producing food without hydroponics, which make little use of water and soil. We have also had a project from Djibouti producing powder milk in a country where this item is difficult to access and is expensive to keep. We have had also very interesting projects in the energy and the environment sector for saving energy, saving water. So these are also examples of innovative entrepreneurship and the importance in the MENA region. Then I would like to jump to the next slide. Is that one of the main challenges also the MENA region is facing is a low level of enterprise creation. This is data from the World Bank. This is from the World Bank Group Entrepreneurship Snapshots, which are surveys taken worldwide on enterprise creation. And from 2004-2009 averages, we can see that the MENA region is lagging behind many other regions. For instance, high-income countries registered 4 firms per 1,000 working age population, whereas in South Asia they registered less than 0.80, and the MENA region is even less, 0.63. So this shows that enterprise creation in the MENA region is low compared to other countries. Also at the individual level, we can see that MENA countries for which data is available lag behind. For instance, Oman is at the top with 1.4 firms created per 1,000 people in working age. Egypt is very low with 0.13%. So this gives a picture of the low level of entrepreneurship in the region. But I would like to mention that this data also has a caveat, that this data is for limited liability companies. It's registered limited liability companies, and normally developed countries register higher levels of limited liability companies than developing countries. So this could be a little bit biased towards high-income countries, but still provides a picture of a comparison of different countries and regions. Then many of the challenges that SME and SMEs and entrepreneurs face have been already mentioned. We can just draw them quickly. We have external challenges mostly related to the business environment, such as fiscal and labor policies, taxation, access to finance, etc. But companies also have internal problems, such as hurdles in achieving economies of scale to reach large orders or compliance with quality and sanitary standards. So these are two kinds of problems that where governments could have a role, mostly in the external issues, but also in internal issues. Government can help companies, as it was mentioned already, with ancillary services, for instance, to improve the quality of their products or to comply with a certain quality and production standards. And to speak more particularly about the MENA region, challenges that have been identified by the MENA investment program, particularly the working group 2 on SMEs and entrepreneurship, are that SMEs face high barriers to doing business, particularly for complex licenses, rigid labor laws, high taxes, unfair competition. Also, there is a particular trait in the region is that entrepreneurial activity is reportedly seen as a second best option in many countries where the state is a significant employer. It is said that many times young entrepreneurs, young graduates prefer to work in the public sector rather than starting a company, because the public sector offers a much more stable job position than undertaking a company by themselves. And then we also have the very low economic participation rates of women, which Corinne will add more details on this.
So to give a bit of a background now, or a focus on women's economic participation, as Jorge mentioned, it's one of the key policy challenges for many countries in the MENA region, although there's great diversity amongst the MENA economies in terms of women's labor force participation rates. But on average, 33% of working age women join the labor force in MENA economies, and this is compared with a rate of 61% in the OECD. In addition, when women do join the labor force, national statistics show that female unemployment is higher than male unemployment, which indicates that when women do choose to join the labor force, they face higher barriers in accessing paid employment. Now, why is this an issue that the OECD has taken on? And that's because accelerating women's entrepreneurship would contribute to employment generation and economic growth. And I think that the presentation of Mrs. Shaw was rightly pointed out that that women entrepreneurs create jobs for themselves and for others. And there was also a survey done by the World Bank of women-led businesses in the MENA region, which shows that women-led firms are more likely to employ educated workers and women. So that's just a bit of the impact on economic growth. And now I will move to just a brief of some of what international experience has shown to be effective in accelerating women's entrepreneurship development, and sort of